Iran carried out a missile attack on the United States' Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar on Monday, June 23, 2025. The attack was in response to the U.S. striking 3 nuclear sites in Iran 2 days prior. According to a U.S. official, there are no reports of casualties at the base. Iranian officials gave advance notice of the retaliatory attacks through Qatar to the United States, allowing for anticipation and interception of most missiles. President Donald Trump thanked Iran for giving early notice, stating that no lives were lost and hardly any damage was done. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar lifted its shelter-in-place order on Tuesday. The U.S. Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration to resume deporting migrants to third countries without additional due process requirements. The decision, made on June 23, 2025, reverses a lower court's order that required officials to provide notice and opportunity to be heard before removing individuals. The case is ongoing, but the High Court's ruling has effectively cleared the way for expedited removals of unauthorized immigrants to countries such as El Salvador, Guatemala, South Sudan, and Libya. Justice Sonia Sotomayor dissented, accusing her colleagues of condoning lawless behavior by the administration in matters of life and death. A boat capsized on Lake Tahoe in California over the weekend due to a large swell, resulting in the deaths of 7 people and 1 remaining missing. The U.S. Coast Guard reported that 10 people went into the water when the vessel capsized near D.L. Bliss State Park Saturday afternoon. 2 people were rescued and brought to a local hospital, while 6 others were reported dead and 2 missing. Search and rescue operations are ongoing with dive teams from multiple sheriff's offices. The identifications of the victims have not yet been released, pending next of kin notifications. A car was sent flying when a section of road buckled due to extreme heat in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, on June 23, 2025. The incident occurred as a heat wave impacted the area, causing roads to buckle and potentially hazardous conditions for drivers. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt joined Good Morning America to discuss the White House's message following U.S. strikes targeting Iran's nuclear program. The strikes, which occurred on June 23, 2025, were a response to Iran's missile attacks on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Leavitt emphasized that the U.S. is committed to protecting its interests and allies in the region. She also highlighted the importance of diplomacy in resolving conflicts between nations. The Oklahoma City Thunder made history by becoming the 2025 NBA champions, defeating the Indiana Pacers 103-91 in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the team to victory, earning MVP title. The win marks the first NBA championship for the Thunder franchise. A food delivery employee was seen on video throwing water bottles to passengers stuck on a train for 2 hours in the heat. The incident occurred on June 23, 2023, and has been widely shared online. The driver's actions were praised by many as an example of kindness and compassion during a difficult situation. The United States has used bunker buster bombs for the first time in combat, targeting Iranian military sites. The bombs caused significant damage and were deployed as part of a broader U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Military analyst Colonel Steve Ganyard discussed the use of these bombs on ABC News Live, highlighting their effectiveness in penetrating deep into fortified targets. The United States targeted nuclear sites in Iran on Saturday night, with officials and experts providing conflicting statements about the level of damage. The strikes hit a uranium enrichment site in northwestern Iran, another in Natanz, and the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane said initial battle damage assessments indicate extremely severe damage at all 3 sites. However, other officials and experts have expressed skepticism about the extent of the damage, with some suggesting it may be too early to determine the full impact. President Donald Trump met with his national security team in the Situation Room on Monday, June 23, 2025, as tensions with Iran escalated. The meeting came after reports of an Iranian attack on a U.S. military base in Qatar, which was intercepted by the U.S. with assistance from Qatar. Trump had previously warned Iran not to retaliate against the U.S. strikes on its nuclear facility. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced that lawmakers would stay in Washington until the chamber passes a megabill to fund President Trump's domestic policy agenda, including his taxation bill. Mahmoud Khalil, a pro-Palestinian activist and Columbia University graduate student, was released from ICE custody on Friday after a U.S. district judge granted his release on bail. Khalil had been detained for over 3 months, with the Trump administration claiming he posed a risk to U.S. national security. However, Judge Farbiars ruled that the government made no attempt to prove Khalil's release would irreparably harm them or that he represented a flight risk. Khalil vowed to continue advocating for Palestinian human rights despite the threat of detention. He was released from an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Jena, Louisiana, after being denied bail multiple times. The Department of Homeland Security sharply criticized the judge's decision, claiming it undermines national security. In the final day of campaigning before New York City's Democratic primary, candidates who are seen as long shots to win the nomination were urging voters to leave former Governor Andrew Cuomo off their ballots in a last-ditch effort to block his comeback from a sexual harassment scandal. The pitches came as Cuomo has continued to rack up establishment endorsements and has been trying to fend off a charge from Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old state assemblyman who would be the city's first Muslim and first Indian-American mayor if elected. The FBI and Homeland Security hosted conference calls with governors and law enforcement officials to discuss the impact of U.S. missile strikes in Iran on the threat environment. The agencies warned of potential cyber attacks, acts of violence, and anti-Semitic hate crimes. While there is no specific intelligence of a direct threat against the U.S. homeland, officials are urging vigilance and encouraging states to reach out to relevant agencies and infrastructure partners.